Hi guys, Dr. Chloe Costigan here. I just finished a very intense track workout and I like to do what I call a glute reset. I have a lot of patients that are runners and I talk to them about this idea of a post-run routine, and people are pretty good about doing some stretching and some foam rolling, but I like to kind of make sure that after I fatigued all of those muscles like the glute med and the glute max, that I'm doing something to make sure that they're firing how they're supposed to. Because what happens is when we're training, we're intentionally fatiguing those muscles. So it's really common then that as they start getting fatigued, that then we start to compensate in another way. So I can feel that as I start getting tired, I no longer squeeze my left glute. For the last 200s that I was doing, I was like, squeeze your left glute. And I just couldn't, right? I just got to the point where it's like, it's tired, it doesn't want to do this anymore. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to kind of then make sure that I'm kind of telling my nervous system, hey, you're supposed to be firing this left glute. So I like to do this after a run to then make sure that everything is kind of back in place. So then I'll be ready then for my next run. I first start with the Brettzel 2.0. So my left leg is going to come out to this side and then my right inner thigh is going to come down. I'm going to squeeze my glute on this right hand side. So I'm stretching this front hip and then I'm going to come down on my elbow. So I need to make sure that I walk this elbow behind me enough in order to feel this stretch. I'm really trying to squeeze that glute as much as I can so I get that stretch throughout the front. If this feels like it's too easy, then I can walk myself down onto the ground. I'm going to squeeze that glute. Then I even like to place my foot down so then that way I can try to really keep both sides of my pelvis even. I'm going to squeeze that glute and press that knee down. I'm going to hold for 30 seconds on each side. For these side leg lifts, I'm trying to stay in line as best I can. If this bottom knee is bent, it's going to be easier to stabilize. I'm pulling those lower abdominal muscles in. It's really common for me to kind of start to overarch, especially I do that while I'm running. So I need to pull those lower abdominal muscles in. Then I'm going to bring my heel slightly behind my hip. Okay, so here's my hip and then my heel is just slightly behind. I'm going to just dorsiflex my foot, so I'm bringing my toes back toward me. And then I'm going to lift my leg up and then come back down. So I'm going to do 10 just like this. Now the thing that will start to happen is that a lot of times people will start to move their ankle too much. So it might like kind of start to turn down or turn up. What I'm trying to do though is I'm just trying to move just from this hip. The other thing is that I'm really trying to make sure that this heel stays behind where my hip is. So then I feel this muscle firing. This is just using my hip flexor. I do that plenty. I need to make sure that I'm isolating just that glute med. And the other thing is that I'm making sure my toes aren't pointing up toward the sky either. These are very common mistakes. I'm going to do 10 on either side. For the single leg bridges, I'm going to find that neutral position of my spine. So people will tend to kind of be tucked and their back is flat on the mat. That's not what we're looking for here. We're trying to strengthen in a neutral position, and this is a more functional position. So my hand should be able to just slightly come behind underneath my spine. And then I'm going to try to keep the back of my neck long as well, so my chin isn't coming up toward the ceiling. I'm going to lift one leg up, then extend my hip. So I'm going to extend and come back down. So I'm going to do 10 like this on either side. And I'm really trying to think about extending this hip as best I can, squeezing this glute, and then coming back down nice and slowly. Each time I need to make sure that my spine isn't moving. So I'm gonna reset the position of my spine and I'm gonna do 10 on each side. I'm really gonna try to open this hip as much as I can, especially after I'm done running. It's really hard for me to fully extend that hip. That's why we're doing that hip flexor stretch first, because that's what's gonna allow us to open up that hip. So I do 30 seconds of my version of the Brettzel 2.0, 10 side leg lifts on each side, 10 single leg bridges, and I repeat that for a total of 3 rounds. What you'll find is that this might actually be pretty challenging, especially after a run, but it's going to be really helpful for making sure that those muscles are doing what they're supposed to. So I like to be able to isolate the muscle, because After it's been fatigued and I've kind of started to use other muscles to compensate, this is a really great way to make sure that those muscles can fire how they're supposed to, so that I'll be ready for the next run. You'll notice that I do these side leg lifts in a lot of other videos. So when I had highlighted 4 of my favorite strengthening exercises for your knee, I included these side leg lifts. So if you want some additional strengthening for that hip and knee, make sure to check out that video. I love sharing these little tidbits with you guys because I notice that I do this with my patients all the time, that I'll tell them, hey, I tried doing this after my run, so I wanted to be able to share this with you guys because maybe you'd find it to be helpful too. So if you give it a try, please make sure to comment, or if you know someone else who would benefit from this, make sure to share it.